Hey, Bruce, welcome to the show. As a way to get us started, why don't you give us some background on yourself?
Hey, thanks, Pat. Thanks for letting me be on your podcast. This is my first, so excited about it. So yeah, I've been with Bunzel R3 for going on 27 years now. I've worked every segment of the business. I'm a family man. Been married for 34 years. I've got three kids and five grandbabies and one on the way.
Well, you've been real busy then, right?
Been busy, brother. That's right. Yep, absolutely.
That's what got you in sales, man. You had to make a living somehow, right?
Yeah, all growing up, I wanted to be a pilot, and so I nothing was going to keep me from that. And so when I finally went to flight school, I went to Daniel Webster Aeronautical College. And about the time Eastern Airlines, Brand, Southern, all these airlines were going out of business with thousands of pilots out of work with thousands of hours, I realized real quick like I wasn't going to be a pilot. So went to college, worked in a warehouse for a company called Americold, unloading trucks, working in freezers 30, 40 below zero, and going to school full time and doing that. And I think my work ethic got me an audience with Americold, and they started promoting me. They paid for my college. And I became a assistant general manager and broker from Tyson Foods, which one of our customers invited me to a golf tournament one day. And so went on the golf tournament, had a good time. I used to love to cut up with brokers. As you know, I love to tell jokes and have a good time. And they placed me with this guy by the name of Andre Scholar in the golf tournament. So he's in the cart with me and played a couple holes. And he eventually asked me, who did I work for? And I said, I work for Americold. He goes, I do too. So his name was Andre Scholar. He was the director of sales for all of Americold. So 2 weeks later, he called me up and offered me a job, and that's how I got in sales. So,
What besides the fact that you don't want to be in minus 40-degree temperature all the time, what did you think sales was going to be like?
well, when he first called me up, I really thought of used car salesperson, right? And
Right.
then, but understanding logistics and the services that we provided to people like Walmart, Target, anybody that had a Kroger's, I mean, Breyer's ice cream, it was a logistical program that we sold. So I understood the value of logistics and how to quantify the value to the actual customer. And that was really appealing to me because it was more than just a cheap case cost. It was actually providing a great service, which helped them distribute it to their customers. So
How long did you stay with Americold?
I stayed with Americold for about 6 years, and it was one of them things. Very very young family. I would leave on Sunday nights, get back on Thursdays, and eventually my wife still taught school with three young babies, and she's like, "Okay, enough's enough. I need help." So I was actually I'll never forget this. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and there was a barbershop quartet, and I remember talking to Jill at night. She's having a meltdown with three babies at home. She's had enough. So I had a buddy of mine by the name of Alan Morgan who worked for Bunzel Miami, and I called him up and I said, "Hey man, tell me about Bunzel." And so that's how I got on board with Bunzel. So yep.
Interesting. What did you, as early Bruce, what did you like about sales at that time?
Um, I like the conquest, Pat. I've always been a hunter, right? I've always classified people as either farmers or hunters, and I like taking a target, whether that be a product line or whether it be a new customer or whatever. And I like hunting that target until I close it. That has always been the most appealing thing about sales, and being flexible with my own schedule. Um, that's another thing that I really liked about sales, and controlling my own payment or my own pay. Destiny was a really good thing. So.
Right, right. At Americold, you were basically B2B, business to business, or business to customer.
Business to customer with the option of bringing on new customers. So the first two customers I had was Walmart corporate and Cisco corporate. So
Right.
I learned how to take a beating early on in life, right, for logistic woes or whatever. But it helped me grow too, and really understanding the true value we brought to those two larger customers, which helped me sell to the smaller customers and so on. So
What did you know about Reed before you got into it? You kind of transitioned from this role at Americold to now you were an individual contributor there. Now you started to become an individual contributor at R3 and redistribution. What did you think about redistribution? Did you know anything about the organization or the industry, I should say? It's a vertical, and verticals can be very siloed, as we know, and the
yes.
product lines are very exclusive.
I didn't know anything about it actually. I just knew that I had I understood logistics. And so, and the way it was described to me, it's still, no matter what that product was, it's still logistics involved. But I was kind of blown away by how many different SKUs are out there. At first, it was kind of staggering. Earl Engelman, a gentleman, hired me into the segment, into the grocery segment. So I had a book of business, and it was back then, Pat, as you know, and you've done a good job training people. The training method I got was, here's your green bar, go figure it out. So, and my customers helped me do that. They really, they showed me what their needs were and what their pains were. So I was able to work closely with people like Brandon Barrow, Earl Engelman, and even our customer service and purchasing departments to really help, be successful in those segments.
Yeah, exactly. The old days, the cold calls, right? Which
Cold
is
call.
term, yeah, the term we
Yeah.
don't use any longer. I mean, it's especially with the internet, there's no such thing as a cold call any longer.
Right.
Before you had your stint, before you moved into Reedy, you spent some time in food processor. Was that before or during the time?
I actually was calling on food processors even before we had a food processor segment. I found it was really easy because they needed, there was a need for RD there because sometimes they couldn't afford in a certain category to buy a truckload. They needed us. So I just happened to fall into a bakery called Benson Baking, and they continued to see the need. We could deliver to them 2-3 times a week, and it was really valuable to them. So, and then I think that I remember the gentleman that I took over for, John King, which you remember him.
Right.
I had mostly my business was food processor, so it was a good fit for me to slide into the food processor segment. And then I took over for the Southeast region, and I believe you and Craig had the West Coast then. So
Yeah, correct. So you went from individual contributor to sales leadership. But just to define what I mean by that is that it wasn't so much that we were leading people as much as we were BDL's business development leaders. We didn't have the directs reporting to us, right?
we did not. We were tasked to go out and open big opportunities and then sort of pass it along to people that would run it locally. And so it was another a hunting expedition that we got to go do, and anything we could do to create an opportunity to get in there to show our value is what we did. And I thought we were pretty effective at it too, because it was a time where we saw our grocery business going back upstream. And so
Right.
I don't know if you remember that or not. We definitely,
Absolutely.
they were doing everything at the processor level. So it was either adapt or die. So I thought we did a fantastic job, showing our value to that particular segment.
Yeah, you mentioned being a hunter, and a hunter is so important in this industry, especially what we were doing at that time. So you don't have any directs. You had to go out there. You basically, ate what you killed, right? And
That's right.
and then we took those accounts. We just passed them on to our salespeople in the branches. The persona of people that you met when you were dealing with the business to business or customers are different than they were on the food processor end. It was a much longer cycle.
Yes, it was a lot longer sales cycle. And we learned early on that a buyer, a local purchasing person is never going to get what we're doing. And again, we've had a lot of transactional sales. I'm out of bags. Do you have this type of bag? You have a 16 by 32 bag or whatever. But you started dealing with plant operations. You started dealing with CFOs, CEOs to really help quantify the value we can bring them. As Del Monte, it was able to go in, would use the resources that we have with Tim McLaughlin and his group to go in and quantify our value. By the time the customer picks up the phone till that product left the dock, we could tell you to the penny what that cost them and how we could truly
Right.
save them money. Yeah.
There was a lot of collaboration. You had to bring in members of your team when you're a single contributor, right? You're not really bringing in that team. When you get to where you have to collaborate with what I call the enterprise accounts, the more complex accounts, and we'll talk about redistributions because I think there's a lot of broadliners in there that are very difficult to deal with. So you're at the food processor level. You have all these different personas to deal with: the plant manager, the production manager, the director of purchasing. What skill set did you bring a skill set with you on that, or did that just develop over time? How to deal with those
Unfortunately,
personas?
I think it was developed over time, Pat, to really understand the customer's pains and being able to focus and truly understand what those pains were. Because when we started it, man, we had, Fortune was our bag company, which they weren't even in the processor business. So we really grew this thing from nothing and didn't know that much about food processors, but we, were in there enough to listen to some of the problems that they had. We would ask for your worst category, and we got to learn the pains they would have. You remember that?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
but not only that, I remember this was such a new category for Bunzl that we had to do more selling upstream to bring in the type of products we needed to do with our own company before we could sell downstream. So, but yeah, we kind of learned as we went. But that was a valuable lesson. I mean, it really made us a lot more targeted when we went into a processor, knowing, with the experience we were gaining from the Del Montes and the Bensons and the Tysons and people like that over the years, how to really help a food processor.
Yeah, it was like, and I had somebody mention to me before, it was like drinking, water from a fire hose. We had to learn quickly. You had to adapt to the market. You had to adapt to the industry. Every industry, every vertical has their own different, idiosyncrasies in them that, from redistribution and grocery to safety to food processor. And you had to know that persona that you dealt with. You mentioned about, you know, desired outcomes, getting to the customer, relationship building. That's got to be important, especially in the sale that's usually a year, 18 months to 2 years, right?
Right. They have to trust you, man. And you know what? And I tell people all the time, they ask me some of the benefits I've had over the years in sales. That alone, I've made a lot of good friends over the years they were customers, but then they became friends, they became partners. And I'm still friends with a lot of my processors today. I talk to them on a weekly, monthly basis. And that was a huge benefit. But they have to be able to trust you, and they have to be able to see the passion you have for what we do, that you truly believe in it first so they can believe in it. And so I believe in what we're doing at Bunzl R3, and we do bring a true value. Quantifying that value a lot of times is where we struggle at, but they do see it. And again, that's another benefit in sales. So.
Yeah. I always ask a question. So, what do you think is the best quality to have as a salesperson? And a lot of people say, well, the customer really has to like you. And there are a lot of customers that will like you, but that doesn't mean they're going to buy from you.
That's right.
It's the trust factor, right? They have to
They
trust
have
you.
to trust you. Exactly. Because I mean, in processor days, Pat, I've shut down processors due to bad service. The truck was too full. I just, the warehouse manager made a decision, cut off the product. We shut a processor down. They've got to be able to know you're going to respond to them real quick, and keep them in business. So on the processor segment, but that goes for anybody,
Right.
for ED or grocery, or whoever. They have to trust you, and they have to like you.
Yeah. And I talk about our markets, our industries being so vertical. But however, our product line is, pretty much universal. It's, on the
Yes.
horizontal plane, we can kind of sell safety, we can sell trays, we can sell films, we can sell boxes, we can containers, whatever it is. But to a food processor where they have a specific film that they use to wrap their product in, or they have a certain box or container, you just can't go out there and find that.
Right.
And it's
Exactly.
it's
Yes.
not on off the shelf. So you
It's
have to
not off
make
the
sure.
shelf. It's specific for that piece of equipment, for that product. And I feel like we did an overall good job. I'll give BPD credit here. They do a fantastic job at that. There's a lot of fail safes in that too for them. So, and
Right.
again, I think that's why the Tysons and the bigger guys really trust us, because we do perform, we do show up with the right quality product and the right service that's customer focused, and we truly care about their business.
Yeah. Your experience in hunting and cultivating accounts moved you took another challenge, redistribution.
Yes.
What pointed you in that direction? Was it the light bulb go on in your head, or was, somebody push you in that area or say there's more opportunity? What did you think?
I was getting bored with, you work a region for so long, and you're kind of
Right.
like getting a little antsy, and I saw a great opportunity with a large food service company based out of Atlanta where I live. It is a buying group with over 400 individual food service distributors in it. That is a very fertile hunting ground, Pat. I saw tons of opportunity in there, and with a buying group who pretty much needed us, and they know they need us. So it's been a fantastic. I've been doing it for 9 years now. It's been a fantastic 9 years, and it's still a very fertile hunting ground. So I love it. Love being a part of that.
When we in our industry, we don't have a lot. You hear a lot of industries they have lead generation. They supply a lot of leads and generation. Our go-to was going into a supermarket. Everybody asks me, "What did you guys do for lead generation?" Oh, we went to the supermarket, flipped over packages, and we looked at where they were manufactured and do we have the business, right?
Right.
What was the entry point for you going from, let's say, just regular sales to food processor? And then now, you're a sales leader, again, another leadership role, trying to develop business with redistribution. What was the entry point? Where would you hit? Where would you go to, first of all?
Well, at first, it was nothing but problem accounts. I was helping the branches with problems account, different issues we're having. That was made attention to the buying group, which would be made attention to myself. So that's kind of how I learned the RED side of it, was working on serious problems with internal issues we've had, which I struggle with that. It was a learning experience for me, which I truly I'm thankful I did it, but it wasn't the day-to-day sales that I was used to. It was really learning how to manage on a local sales level, manage on a local sales manager level, and then also working with our purchasing, corporate purchasing, our imports, our marketing departments, and things like that to fix problems or make problems go away. So,
Where do you think in the RED section, are you selling more the product level, or are you now selling more services?
so we're selling both. We're selling. We've just recently signed an exclusivity on a private brand within this buying group. So we are actually, it's fun again, Pat. We're actually going out doing market blitzes for Unipro members who have signed on to that private brand.
Right.
And so we are selling more end user sales now as a team that we've built within this buying group. And I have 2 reports now, and I work with a team of like 6 in this group. So again, it's something that we're actually truly going out and selling to the actual end user restaurants now on behalf of or on behalf of the buying group members. So
Right. So you're going back to those sales days again. You're actually out there selling,
out there selling,
which
yes.
keeps the toe in the water. But there's also, because you guys do a lot of program selling too. And what I mean by that, be more specific, is like total category management, right? That's high in the list of RED.
Right. And again, we actually have a total category management team that focuses on the larger buying group members to go in and offer different services that really apply to that. And again, which really revolves around the private label. So yeah, we do provide a lot of that. We do have a lot of marketing support, but there's still a ton of day-to-days that we're doing with, even exclusive brands, even with national brands, that we work on a day-to-day basis and go out and help our sellers sell to these end users.
Right. And doing what you're doing, the program selling, total category management, and seeing those type of people, the procurement people, you are also daily dealing with the C-suite, right?
Yes.
And that's a whole different persona from where you started to now at the C-suite, because those are the CFOs, the CIOs, those are ones that are really asking the financial questions, right?
Pat, and that's one of the struggles I have, which I like dealing at that level, and that's primarily who I deal with. We have a team to go out and do the blitzes. And I think the number one challenge I have on a weekly basis is continue to quantify our value to these people. Why are we using, Bunzl R3? Why? So we're having to continue to really quantify that. And we do a good job at that. I think we could do a better job at it. But again, once they see the value, I'll give you an instance. It's really easy to tout your success, and we do. We had a category of towel tissue napkin, and the incumbent that we took it away from, I think they did 120,000 cases annually with the buying group members. We ended up, we're probably March will be a year that we've taken the category over. We'll hit over 700,000 cases. And those successes like that, we are continually preaching those back upstream. Like we're more than just a selling organization. I mean, a buying organization. We are a selling organization that's going to help your members grow in the segments. And that's what they look for from us. They want their Unipro members to gain market share. And that's what we're trying to provide them. So,
As a successful leader in this organization, and you're one of those, very successful, and you go from, it's funny, you go from a hunter, right? You go from a hunter. Now your role is more consultative to that customer,
yes.
right?
Yes, absolutely. And that was a struggle for me. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't feel like, that's, I still feel like I have a hunter in me, and I still get like mixing up in sales and getting out there with them. But yeah, it's more consultative. It's more sales motivation for my team. And not just my team, but the whole R3 team. There's over 200 or buying group sellers out there that I deal with on a regular basis. So it's constantly motivating them, making them understand the program of the buying group to help them sell better. There's a lot of that going on now. I constantly am working with marketing on coming up with better programs to help our sellers sell. So yeah, it's a different role, but I feel like I've embraced it. I like it.
Yeah, and a hunter in you is what gets you out of bed in the morning, right? That's
Right.
what everybody you'll never lose that. If you lose that, you're not going to be in sales. And I don't think any great salesperson will ever lose that hunter mentality.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, but now you have to be not only more consultative to the customer, but also your teammates. What do you do? What skill set do you help bring that into? How do you explain that to them? Hey, you have to kind of take a shift here from being that hunter to be more consultative with the customer.
Yeah. Are you talking about how I help them be more consultative?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Um, what I've noticed about a lot of R3 sellers, they show up and throw up. Um, just listening is something that we really struggle at, and I encourage our people to listen and find the problems that they're having, and they might not understand the problems, but you will find out the problems, and you can help them work through these problems. And so, and I've actually had a success recently where one of my report twos, found a huge problem with a cup, and it was something that the buyer didn't even realize. And so she was able to help them through that and get them into a different category that would service their customers even better. So yeah, that the light bulb went off then as far as consulting is concerned.
Right. And I think with newer reps, and not just age wise, I'm just saying newer people, newer in sales, we want to sell stuff. That's what we do. We're hunters. We want to go out and find and solve problems. A lot of times when a customer, they're not going to know sometimes what their problems are, or they may not be, forthcoming with their problems because nobody really wants to share what's wrong with their
Sure,
organizations.
absolutely,
And that's
yeah,
our job, right? Not only to solve a problem, but we have to uncover that problem. And we can't do that by just talking over the customer. And I think a lot of newer reps, because
yeah,
when they go in there, I had something on a podcast, we were talking about meetings versus conversations, and this is what separates, newer from seasoned reps, is that they want to have meetings. It's all about having the meetings, but
yeah,
it's more of a conversation, don't you think? You need to get to the
absolutely.
conversation.
I have a funny story about
Well,
that.
yes.
If anybody's ever called on Walmart corporate back in the day, they used to, my buyer would say, "How much time do you need?" In my first meeting at Walmart, when I was with Americold, I said, 30 minutes, we can get it done in 30 minutes. So they would come down to you in these little cubicles, and I didn't know this, but she had a timer up there. And so I'm talking about family and getting to know her and everything. All of a sudden it went off. I got nothing done business wise that day. That I had a list of things I had to cover, but I just started rambling about fun stuff and getting to know the customer, which she liked that. She felt bad for me. She gave me another call like 2 weeks later. But again, it, yeah, I agree with that. I've seen them. I've been in meetings to where they sit down and start just railing into the product, not to get to say, "How you doing? How's your family?" They don't look around on any type of background for the buyers. And so it's just a learning thing. It's a learning curve to help young salespeople with. And Pat, I feel like I've been able to coach some young people into that. Sales is fun, man. It's an opportunity to get to know people, to get to build new relationships with people. And I think as a seller, I think that's the number one thing that we can do for our company is to build that bridge, man. Not just one bridge, many bridges with an organization. So
Yeah, exactly. And building a bridge is so important because there's a link between our organization and the customer, right? Because that's who we're
yes,
selling into. When you are meeting with customers, and especially going back to the C-level, the personas there are different than they are on the regular, street level customer type, business customer type of relationship, because they're more on the financial end of it. And I think where my weakness at first as a newer rep, a younger rep, was that I didn't really relate to the C level because I didn't really have that financial background.
Same here. Exactly. Same here. And I think, when I first started, I didn't have that either, Pat. And, but working with people like Tim McLaughlin's group to really understand and quantify that, for instance, a pallet position, right? There's no such thing as a warehouse stretcher, right? So the guy who sees the P&L sees how much inventory he has. He sees the opportunity there within inventories. I had a situation back in COVID to where the owner of Cheney Brothers, Byron Russell, I went in and talked to him July of the COVID, and he walked me. He had a window that overlooked his warehouse. He said, "You see how much money I got tied up there? That's absolutely doing nothing for me right now." So again, I agree with that. I didn't understand the financials until, as I matured in my career working with people like Tim McLaughlin and so on. And I would encourage our sellers to really use those resources internally to learn. If you don't know it, learn it.
Yeah, and you just opened up, the conversation about mentors. I feel mentors are very important in any sales job that you have, or any job that you have to have a mentor. And as many bright, intelligent people that we have in this organization, you need to go find that. And that's kind of tough to tell the newer, reps, because they're full of, wanting to go out there and just sell, sell, sell. And then when they're faced with something that they're not, too familiar with, they tend to shy away from that conversation. So was mentoring, finding a mentor, many mentors in this organization, very important to
I had
you?
many mentors, and like it or not, brother, you were one of them. You and Craig were one of them when you got started out there. I'd always, we talked a lot, and I really enjoyed our talks. But I had people like Andre Schuyler, who got me into sales. My dad was one of my mentors in life as far as his discipline was concerned. Yeah, I've had a lot of good mentors in my life. Kevin Eison was a mentor for me. You remember Kevin? He was a big mentor
Yes.
for me. So Ray Simmons was a mentor for me. I look at certain people and their success, and I've tried to emulate that over the years. So it definitely, I've been very fortunate to have really good quality people in my life to help me grow my career, because I sure couldn't do it. This country boy right here couldn't do it on his own, bro. I tell you that right now.
Well, and that's what the luxury of our positions are, is that we have, again, a lot of intelligent people in here that are very, uh, well, they're SMEs and they're subject matter experts in what they do. And
Yeah,
why don't we do that? Especially in the enterprise area that you're in, the enterprise accounts that you're in, where you have a lot of different people you have to deal with. You're not going to be an expert in logistics. You came from a logistics background, but
yeah,
we have people that are just experts in that. We have people that
yes,
are experts in sourcing, in
yes.
procurement, in operations, warehouse. And we need to, as a team, especially in the category that you're in, that you need to bring these people in and use them to help you in these presentations. From individual contributor now to a sales leader, you need to draw these people in. You think that's important?
It is critical, Pat. So when I mentioned bridges, right? I've got bridges from purchasing to Unipro or buying members out there. I've got warehouse managers to warehouse managers to different distributors out there. So we've built these different bridges, and what that's happened, it's a benefit for me that not only am I buying into that customer, so was purchasing, because they've got a direct contact. So was customer service, or talking to them on a direct. So was our warehouse manager. They've got direct contacts in their purchasing. You've got so many bridges built that makes us really sticky in there, because we're showing extra value that your typical RJ Shinner or some other ED is not going to do. They don't have the resources capable like we do to do that.
Right, right. In your early days of selling, where you were selling just from sheer energy, sheer luck, sheer, just wanting to be competitive and make the sell, do you think you've kind of turned more to the intuitive seller now?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And it was simple fact is of not knowing back then, right? And
Right.
utilizing what the knowledge we've learned over the years now to really, have a focused and really a targeted rifle top approach now, instead of just showing up and seeing what we could sell them. Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say if you look back, to young Bruce versus where you are today? If you had something to change early on, quicker, what would that be as far as your skill set?
Oh man, that's a great question. I probably I wouldn't have been so hard on Bruce. I was really hard. I was really driven every day, and that takes a toll every now and then. I was really hard on myself to show up and be the number one guy. And looking back now, I didn't really have to do that. I could have just been Bruce and been real successful. So
Yeah. Do you look at do you have a process that you always have whenever you go into account, like a process, a method? Sometimes we talk about strategic selling plans. Do you think those are important to have as a salesperson?
it's critical. I mean, you have to have a good plan when you go in to show up and talk to a customer. And ours has always been, the value of redistribution. When they bring me in, we're talking about, taking over 2 or 3 categories and bring it to them biweekly. So those are strategic, meetings we plan before we go in there, and quantifying the values, doing the homework before we get in there.
Right.
But you have to do that, and again, it's listening to the membership out there, the different distributors and their pain points. So going in, presenting a true fix to a pain point, and being able to really quantify it and back it up is something that's critical. I won't waste my time to do that, Pat. It costs a lot to move people around, and I want to be strategic when I go in to help our sellers and our branches out.
Yeah. And that comes through being in front of the customer, getting and seeing the customer, and also, like you say, listening to the customer, asking those right questions, but listening for the answers, and not, to your point, I love that term, show up to throw up. That a lot of times we have all these things, we just throw at customers, and whatever bounces off the wall. You can't do that any longer because people are
No,
more
you can't.
intelligent these days.
Right. That's exactly right. And you're right. It's intelligence. They've got it. They're looking for help. They don't have time. The buyer, they're used to it. That's the transactional sale. That's we still do that a lot, unfortunately, but we do have strategic sellers, and it's growing. And because of efforts like you and different leaders out there that are really bringing to light the true value of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah. You're an expert in your field. You're one of the best at it. And, I'm always proud to be a colleague of yours. So great conversation today, and I enjoyed it. And if anyone gets a hold of you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Bruce.Eison, Eison at bunzelUSA.com.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Pat. Enjoyed it, brother.
All right.